Welcome again to our first episode following the initial introduction. It's Vikram from Ventus Cables and Connectivity. A little bit more about myself. I've been working for Suda Cables AG Switzerland as the agent and global key accounts manager for a long while now, coming up to 12 years. In this journey, we worked on over 2.5 gigawatts of solar projects, mostly in the UK, but some international as well. I've had enormous pleasure in meeting some great people in the industry. One of those is Mr. Matthew Xenakis of JA Solar. Matthew, welcome.
Thanks very much, Bikram. Great to be on here. Yes, so I work for JA Solar as the utility scale sales manager. A bit about JA Solar. We managed to deliver 10 gigawatts of modules to Europe last year, 600 megawatts to the UK in a 1.3 gigawatt market. And looking to achieve similar sort of numbers in 2023.
Tell us a bit more about you as a person, Matthew. How did you get into solar?
So, funnily enough, the reason I got into renewable energy was mainly because I was born and raised in Zimbabwe, and we used to endure quite a few power cuts along the way. And then after, experiencing that sort of the level of power cuts that we used to experience. I then studied electrical engineering at Stellenbosch University. I worked for a solar distributor in Zimbabwe called One Stop Solar. Mm-hmm. We designed, installed and sold off-grid systems, mainly because to assist during blackouts. From there, I moved to the UK at the start of 2020. I then worked as a sales engineer for a solar thermal and PVT company called Naked Energy. From there, I then moved to JA Solar.
And you've got on your LinkedIn profile, Matthew, a sales technician at One Stop Solar. Tell us a bit about them.
So, One Stop Solar, they were a distributor in Zimbabwe, and they sold and installed solar systems, mainly to residential homes to combat the sort of power cuts that were quite prevalent in Zimbabwe and still are. It was a great job. Managed to get my hands dirty a little bit whilst installing a few systems. Went and did some large scale installations on farms. Worked with some VSDs, variable speed drives, to sort of pump water out of rivers into farm dams to help with irrigating the lands.
And Naked Energy, they make PVT tubes, right?
That's correct. So they've designed a really unique and fantastic product. They have a system, a solar collector that can produce hot water as well as produce electricity.
Fantastic. And everyone has too much information these days, and the first thing we do is we look at people's LinkedIn profiles, check if they've embarrassed themselves on Facebook or Instagram or anything like that. But let's not go off the page too much. What I see on here is you started with Naked Energy almost exactly when we went into lockdown in March 2020. When did you come to the UK, and tell us a bit more about your journey? It's a huge transition coming from Africa to the UK.
Yeah, it was a bit of an interesting experience. I managed to find Naked Energy while I was in Zimbabwe, funnily enough. And as I moved over, I had my last interview with the team based out in Crawley. And a bit of unfortunate timing. My first day was the 23rd of March. I remember exactly because that was the first day of the UK lockdown. And since then it's sort of took a little bit of time to get up to speed with the way things work in the UK, and it sort of changes. But everyone was very welcoming at Naked Energy, as well as the people in general in the UK.
And it seems like after 2 years with Naked Energy, you made the move to work with Alistair at JA Solar from April 2022. How did that transition happen for you?
Yeah, so Alistair and I had a few conversations. For those of you that don't know, Alistair Mounsey is the sales director for UK, Italy, France and Ireland. for JA Solar. We had a few conversations and eventually led to me joining the JA team in April 2022.
Fantastic, and you've been there almost 2 years. Tell us a bit more about what you do now at JA Solar.
At JA at the moment, there's three of us. So there's myself, Alistair, and Alexa Thomas Derrick. We're a dedicated team to help deploy solar modules in the UK and Ireland. At the moment, we are really busy, which is always a good thing. There's lots of solar to be sold in the UK, and at the moment prices are coming down for solar modules, which is always a fantastic thing, especially if we need to transition to net zero in order to meet these net zero targets that have been set. And yeah, I think it's a really important time for the UK solar industry at the moment to sort of focus on these large scale ground mounted as well as commercial projects, and also for the sort of homeowner to be looking at deploying solar modules on their roofs too.
Fantastic, and what sticks in my mind is $10 billion US. JA being a Fortune China 500 company and global top 500 new renewable energy companies. $10 billion. That's a lot of solar panels. What is that in terms of megawatts and gigawatts?
Gee, it's hard to really know. We started off as a cell manufacturer, and we then transitioned to a module manufacturer in 2009. Since then, we've been deploying modules all over the world. We have over 100 gigawatts of cumulative shipments of
Wow.
modules, and last year we managed to get a market share of about 16%. Which kind of just shows how the market's growing in the moment, not even in the UK and Europe, globally too.
So 100 gigawatt peak is totally cumulative since JA started.
That is, and that's only for numbers at the end of 2021.
Fantastic, and interesting that you mentioned that you've got a degree in electrical engineering, if I heard that correct. And so I want to know from your opinion. It doesn't need to be correct, it's not an exam, but capacity factors, a lot of naysayers about the industry, like Arnold Schwarzenegger says on his podcast, don't listen to the naysayers. A lot of naysayers say solar's never going to work, capacity factors almost nothing, but from my own research, I researched about capacity factors between 9 and 11% in the UK, not a very sunny country, but 100 gigawatts, even at the low end, you're looking at what, 10 gigawatt peak? In terms of capacity factors, what is your thought about capacity factors in solar?
I don't know, bro. I don't know capacity factors. What do you mean by capacity factors?
Capacity factors as in, say you've got 100 gigawatt peak solar shipment, or say you've got 100 megawatt peak solar plant.
Yeah.
Theoretically, it's not going to be working 24 hours a day because it doesn't work during the night.
Yeah.
Irradiance is a lot lower in the winter.
Okay.
So even if you might have a 100 gigawatt solar plant, what
are you getting out of it?
What the academics tell us is we're actually getting 10% of the nameplate capacity.
Okay.
So a 100 megawatt solar farm would actually generate, say, 10 megawatts. And so a lot of naysayers, oil and gas lobbyists, hydrogen, nuclear industry, they tend to say, solar's never going to work because it's almost no capacity factors. So is this something you've thought about in your busy life of 100 gigawatts as a company?
Yeah. So funnily enough, everyone when I speak to Zimbabweans back home, they say, "I can't believe you're doing solar in the UK. There's no sun there." And to be honest, they are completely wrong. There's a lot of sun and enough to sort of power the UK for sure. Especially if we start pairing it with wind and battery storage. This can improve the capacity factor for sure. And what a lot of people don't understand is solar modules tend to work better on a cold, sunny winter's day compared to a hot summer's day. PV modules get less effective during a really hot summer's day compared to if they are nicely cooled in the winter, as well as absorbing the UV rays.
Right, Matthew, I sell cable and engineering services for key accounts, working mostly for large scale. I've supplied some rooftops as well, some large ones like Bentley in the past. My interest in talking to module manufacturers, especially ones as reputable as JS Solar, because most of my clients tend to speak very highly of you, is just really know what's going on in the industry, because modules are procured sometimes 2 years before construction. And the elephant in the room, of course, we've had a lot of tumultuous times with Brexit, with the pandemic, with the Ukraine war. It's still not concluded, and we've already started another one in the Middle East. So conditions have been fantastic. But if I look back to the conception of the large-scale industry, of course, it started in Germany and then Spain, and their feed-in tariffs were dramatically reduced. And suddenly, the experts from Germany, Spain rushed in, and the Netherlands with Oscar Mayer have rushed into the UK market. We had 50 megawatts in 2011, according to the Renewable Energy Planning Database, which you can find online through the Department for Net Zero. It used to be called BEIS. Then we had 75 megawatts in 2012. Then we peaked in 2015 at 2.5 gigawatts. Of course, the big B word, the Brexit thing started, the referendum in 2016. And then we nosedived from there to 36 megawatts in 2019, and then even in the lockdown year 2020 we did more, 96. And then the Ukraine energy crisis, raw material shortage, we did 53 megawatts in 2021. And 2022, I'm seeing on the government website operational assets of only 223 megawatts. Of course, these databases are rarely up to date, and they only count operational solar farms. What is your take on the installation and deployment of late?
So I do believe that the deployment of solar has been slightly more than that when you obviously include commercial and residential. So as by our numbers, we have from PV Module Tech that in 2021 there was 700 megawatts deployed, and in 2022 there was 1.3 gigawatts deployed. This year we're probably looking at about 1.7 gigawatts to be installed in the UK this year, and I'd like to challenge everyone to hopefully get over 2 gigawatts for 2024.
Fantastic. So this is what we are forecasting as well. Of course, our data is a bit out of date compared to yours because we work mostly on the EPC side. Often the module deals are done, so what we are seeing on the official channels, which lags a bit, and may not include all projects. Some of them may need off-gem accreditation or whatever, to be counted officially. So we're seeing a year-end trend of only 272 megawatts at the moment for 2023, but for second half of 2023, there's 1,700 megawatts in construction. That's really exciting because, it means we should have easily over 2 gigawatts. Obviously, fingers crossed, God knows what else can happen, more lockdowns, more wars. We hope we are over the bad luck that we had since Brexit, and then we can start another boom time. But there is a lot of excitement to talk about because the largest solar farms, I think the last one was 75, probably Landwern with Next, and one before that was 72 megawatt peak, Shopwick Solar Farm with BSR, which is currently owned by Foresight. So we are not only being ambitious, but the industry's jumped from 75 megawatts to 373 megawatts peak in construction, only in one solar farm with Cleve Hill. And then there's also 400 megawatt peak, or probably 500 megawatts with Longfield with EDF. What is your view on these massive NSIP jobs? Do you think they will be a reality one day?
Yeah, and I think Cleve Hill's a great example. It's great to see that the planning has been approved for these other projects, such as Longfield, which is a 500 megawatt site. NSIP, for those of you that don't know, is National Significant Infrastructure Projects, and they are large-scale solar farms that tend to be well over 100 megawatts. I saw recently, Vikram, I don't know what your take on this is, that there's a 1 gigawatt that's which has gone into planning recently. That's the largest one that I've seen recently. Have you heard anything from it so far?
Yes, I think it's called Great North Road or something like that. It's something to definitely follow up on later on. The good thing about NSIP or National Significant Infrastructure Projects is it's all public and anyone can go have a look. I want to talk to you a bit about the Solar Task Force. Which has just been established because the industry really has been neglected by the current incumbent government since 2016. It's been a boom and bust cycle. The UK has the largest offshore wind resource potentially in Europe, and solar's there to complement when the wind's not blowing. You need something to fill the gap. Of course, we need a mix of different technologies, but nuclear is not coming online fast enough. So the government may have busted maybe 20,000 jobs when they dramatically reduced feed-in tariffs after offering a policy that was far too generous. Now I see online that there's a solar task force established by the government, which is writing the solar roadmap, which aims to deploy 70 gigawatts by 2035. Of course, we've been lagging massively, so this means 4.5 gigawatts a year from 2024. Do you see that anywhere near being plausible, considering we haven't got any people to build anything right now?
I think it's going to be very tough. We are seeing a lot of foreign EPCs starting to move into the UK as well. I don't think the current infrastructure that the UK has at the moment will facilitate 4.5 gigawatts a year, unless we are able to get more traction with local EPCs who are extremely busy at the moment, and they just don't have the bandwidth to take on these larger projects and multitude of them. So I think we will definitely need to increase the number of local EPCs in the UK. As you mentioned, there's a lot of projects in development. It's going to be a long road to achieve that target, but rather be ambitious than not, I guess.
Absolutely, and it's something that will have to happen because the net zero strategy is very aggressive. In my opinion, I work in this industry. I've spent my life almost in solar and cable. I think it's just far too ambitious what the government's planning. And the roadmap seems to not be present at the moment. So we'll be looking to see what gets published in February 2024. Obviously, the names on this task force, a lot of people will recognize, like Ben Fawcett, who was at EDF Renewables, according to his most recent job title, Liz McFarlane from Seagen, and Ross Greer from Next Energy Capital. So a lot of these names are known. It's a small industry, but we won't go too much into that in this short episode, Matthew. But what I do want to ask about, and a lot of people will be thinking when they think about JS Solar or any major module manufacturer, is the module pricing right now. I've heard 18 cents a watt being quoted. I've heard there's 40 gigawatts in a warehouse in Rotterdam. What is your view on pricing and capacities and stock?
So currently the pricing is obviously quite low, the lowest it's ever been actually, and this is attributed to a number of factors. The first one is, we mentioned earlier, that the installation for 2023 has not been as significant as was anticipated at the beginning of the year. Lots of solar panel manufacturers increased their capacity, as well as a lot of new solar panel manufacturers joining the game. So there was definitely an oversupply of modules, with the expectation of it being installed within the UK, Europe, Africa, China, all over the world. This plus a decrease in the raw materials has all sort of caused the price to fall. So within Rotterdam, I don't know the exact number, but there is a number of megawatts in stock there, possibly gigawatts, for all different manufacturers. This is a real interesting point, though, is that the two different types of technologies are also playing a part in this. We're seeing a bit of a shift in the market from P-type to N-type solar modules. So the P-type is not so much in demand as we had originally anticipated, and the transition to N-type has taken a lot shorter than we had originally expected.
And what is your view on these massive modules, like 650 watt monofacials, and have you had any thoughts about bifacial modules yourself?
Yeah, so at JA Solar, we've tend to stick with smaller module sizes. So our biggest module size is a 630 watt module. The main reason we do this is for shipping. It comes double stacked on a pallet rather than vertically with these larger modules. So we tend to get less breakages and less cracking after time within the field. And the technology is advancing so much. So as I mentioned, now we're on to N-type TopCon, which has increased the efficiency quite significantly. So there's no need to go bigger in terms of module sizes. I feel like the technology will catch up. Next thing you know, we're going to be doing tandem cells, and this could increase the cell efficiency to up to 28%. So yeah, it's a sort of R&D game at the moment, and we'll see where we get up to.
Thanks very much, Matthew. Before we close this podcast, for me, people are the most interesting thing about this industry. We've not just had boom and bust cycles with Brexit, with the Corona lockdowns, with the Ukraine war, with the labor shortages, with now inflation and interest rate rise. But one of the good things in the solar industry is, and I've written an article about this before for Leone, for some solar magazine in the past, is that one of the famous words are one of the famous phrases used in this industry is called the solar coaster, because we've had boom and bust cycles constantly, continuously. There's one in Germany, then there was retroactive actions in Spain, and people lost their businesses and came to this industry. Then we had 41 pence a kilowatt hour subsidies. I don't think they ever predicted that people would install solar farms. I think they were aiming for 2 kilowatt rooftops. And then they withdrew this subsidies, and then there was anti-dumping tariffs that was imposed, and people had shipments on the water when the tariffs came in, and then there's also the grid connection deadline. So we are used to things changing. So the kind of people that stick with this industry, it's really takes a lot of guts. So Matthew, with that in mind, and you're relatively new in this industry, where do you see yourself in the future? What do you think will be the future of the industry in the next 7 years, by 2030? And where do you see yourself most importantly this time next year?
So as you mentioned, it's a solar coaster. It tends to happen with newish industries where it's a bit volatile, but hopefully I see a bit of consistency coming through, especially with these ambitious net zero targets and the changes that we're seeing globally, whether it be extreme temperatures, massive storms. There's going to be a particular focus on renewable energy and in particularly solar. So I see that the industry will definitely grow exponentially in the next few years, and it's going to be a fun ride to go on it.
Fantastic, Matthew. Thanks so much for joining us.
Cheers. Thank you, Vikram.